In this session, we're going to set up a union compensation table inside the construction payroll module for Sage Intacct. So go into Applications, Construction Payroll, Compensation Tables. Once in here, you can click Create New, give it a table name and try and keep it consistent across the board. So let's take a step back here and take a look at what we've done so far. So they've used an abbreviation with a dash. So we'll create new and we'll say Carpenters Local 220. And what's really nice with these tables is they have an effective date and an expiration date. So you can establish these tables ahead of time and they will automatically go into effect when the date is reached. Even if that's midweek, it will do the calculations based on the old table for half of the pay period. And then it will do a calculation on the new table for the second half based on these effective dates and expiration dates. So let's say the effective date is January 1. And I like to click Save real quick just to get it on the menu and get it built. And it'll be on the list. So now you notice it has an effective date over on the left, but we have no trades yet in the system. So we can add a trade. This is a carpenter, so we're going to add the carpenter trade. I could click Save as often as I'd like. And you do not need to. And then what I can also do is I can select underneath the trade what levels we're going to have within the company. So for example, for a carpenters union, we are going to use a foreman and we're going to use a journeyman. Now, if you don't have a level that you need, then that's where you need to go back into your trade section in construction payroll and add the appropriate levels that you need within that trade. So I'll click Save. So now we have our trades and levels established for this union. And what we can do is we can enter in what benefits they get either at the trade level or at the class level or both. So for example, within the union, there may be a few of the benefits or deductions that are the same no matter what the level is. So for example, let's say in this instance, everybody gets a union dues deducted from their stub, and it is the same rate no matter what level you're at. So you can set it up at the trade level and you only have to do it once. So I'm going to add a fringe here. I'm going to add an amount-based fringe, and these would already be pre-built based on your prior setup steps. And I'm going to pull from my list. I have one called dues amount. And when I select that, it's going to come up with some pre-fills that will automatically pre-fill based on the initial setup, but you can adjust it accordingly. But you'll notice here, you're going to have two options for the amount based. You're either going to have a flat amount per period, which is the max per period, or you're going to have a percent of the basis. So in this case, let's say the dues is 6% of gross pay. So we're going to use the percent of basis, and we're going to key in 6 as a whole number, and it knows it's a percentage. Then down at the bottom here, you need to define what the basis is going to be. So this has already been built in the initial setup of the dues in the pay modifiers. So it should pre-fill in with time card earnings. And this should work for 95% of what you're doing in the system. But if it's a particular, basically, maybe it's just regular hours and not overtime hours, you can specify that in the system here as well by using a different amount. So it's going to be time card earnings. And there's nothing here involving off of available funds or any adjustments. It's just going to be a 6% of the gross pay, which is the time card earnings. So in this scenario, we're just going to click Save. And that returns the setup for dues at the carpenter level. So if I want to see the detail of it at any time, I can click right on it and it'll open up that screen again. I can see there's the 6%. Now, down at the level of the journeyman versus the foreman, if they're a journeyman, they're going to get amount-based fringe, and they're going to get a education fund, EDC fund. And this is going to be a flat amount, and it's going to be $15 a period for journeyman. So we'll let all that pre-fill in. We'll hit save. And they're also going to get another fringe, and that is going to be a health and welfare fund. And that is going to be, 2% of gross pay. And you can select that as well. Now for a foreman, they also get EDC fund and health and welfare. Their benefit is a little higher, so they can say for the education fund, it's $20. And their health and welfare fund is going to be 2.5%. Okay. So now you'll see at each level, they're both going to have EDC fund and health and welfare fund, but the rates are going to be different. And also down at the levels is where you establish the pay rate for each level. So for a journeyman, for a carpenter in local 220, their rate of pay is going to be, I'm going to click add rate. I'm going to pick what hour type they're eligible for. So they're going to get regular pay, and it's going to be $26 an hour. Now, if there's any other types of pays that they need a rate for, you can add them and select them here. You do not need to set up an overtime and double time rate if it is a standard factored rate that you set up back on the hours type. So for example, for OT, if you put a factor of 1.5 REG in your setup of hours type, you don't need to add it to the list here. It's just going to know that it's 1.5 of 26. In some cases, the overtime rate may be more than time and a half. You can actually establish a manual rate right in here as well, as much as you need. And then the same thing for the foreman. We're going to add a pay rate for the foreman. We'll say it's off REG, and we'll say it's $33 an hour. Once I'm done, I'll click save. And now we have a compensation table built and set up for Carpenters Local 220 that we can use on employee records. And also when we establish a project, we can default to use that Local 220. Now, what's also nice with setting up the unions is when you get the new union table that comes in. So for example, what I didn't do here was I didn't put an expiration date in. So let's say that's going to expire in December 31st of 2023. Okay, so now you'll see your start and end dates. So now if you finally get the new union tables, maybe sometime in November, what you can do is you can come back into this local. So you'll go back to your list here, and there's my local 220. I click on it, and now I don't have to set up a whole new one. What I can do here is click this duplicate button. And when I do that, it's going to want me to put in a new effective date. So it will pre-fill with today's date, so we don't want that. We want to put in a date of 01/01/2024, and we'll make the expiration date 12/31/2024. And I can click save. Now what that did was put the wrong date in here. 12/31/2024. Now what that did is that brought all of my setup over to the next year table. And now if there's any changes, you can come into this table and say, it should be 6.5 now. Save. And the journeyman's got a raise of $28, and the foreman got a raise of $35. So you can click save. And now you've quickly put in your new union rate tables and benefits package, and it will take effect automatically when that time frame hits. And that's setting up the union table under compensation table in construction payroll. Thank you.